We're going to talk about 3 different ways that you can rest today. So, beyond just physical rest, we're going to also talk about spiritual rest and emotional rest, how to know the difference between them, and which one you might be needing right now. If you want to live your most epic, most amazing, most incredible life, we can't do that if we're exhausted, right? Rest has to be a part of the equation. And so often I feel like the conversation around rest, it's definitely much more popular today to make sure that you're getting enough sleep and to, not be burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. However, I think that we have to talk about more than that because there are different ways that we need to rest at different times in order to live our most incredible life so that we can access the creativity within us, so that we can have the inspiration and, really be in a space to create the life that we want to live. So welcome, my name is Lisa. I'm one of the co-founders here at Rise Leadership Circle, and I'm so happy that you are here. This is probably going to be a short and sweet episode. So we've been doing a series over on our Facebook page called the 12 Days of Impact. If you haven't caught it, you can go and check it out. Just go to our page at Rise Leadership Circle. We've been bringing you some really high value, short and to the point Facebook Lives by interviewing some really incredible leaders in various places with a variety of topics to support you. So if you're a leader, an entrepreneur, someone who's interested in just living an incredible life, I invite you to go and check that out. Also this week, you guys, we're currently running the Impact Challenge. If you wanted to be a part of it and you haven't jumped in, there is still time to do so. And the Impact Challenge is a 5-day challenge. Kayla and I do these a couple of times a year where we're really focusing on doing less and making more, but really by way of the inner work. We're focusing on what it means to make an impact. And when we focus on impact, it doesn't necessarily require more time. It's not about more hustle. It's about you creating the most incredible life that you want to create and focusing on what impact looks like, both for you and for the people that you're creating it for. So if you want to check it out, you can click the link below. Like I said, there's still time to join us. Replays are available if we've already started by the time you're listening to this. And I'm going to go ahead and just jump in to today's episode. So as I said, we're talking about 3 different ways to rest. So let's just start with physical rest. I think this one is the one that we talk about most. It's the most obvious. And we know that we need physical rest in order to perform at our highest. We need to have enough sleep every single night. That makes a huge difference. We need rest. We think of it sometimes as like recovery from a workout. We know that maybe after we've done a big physical workout, our body needs time to rest and recover in order to perform at its best. We think about it when, maybe we've had a surgery, an illness, accident, injury. We know that our physical body is so incredibly capable of healing. Like, think about it, you guys. Like, even if if you were to cut yourself today, it's like you could not do anything about that and your body is going to heal all on its own. Like, our body is so magnificent and has such incredible capability to heal. And so we understand that when we allow our body, if we're not continuously physically stressing our body, it's in optimal conditions to heal. And, I think sometimes what's interesting about that is we get sort of these mixed messages, right? If you're someone who is a lot of people that follow us tend to be high performers. They're very interested in creating, a lot of things, creating impact in their life. And we tend to get the idea that if we want to create a lot, we have to push really hard, or, we need to be always moving, always going. And I know that a lot of you are also probably balancing a lot of different things. You might be a mom or a parent. You might be at the same time taking care of your own parents. And there can be a lot of pressure between work and home, or, I know that most people today tend to feel like there's just a lot of pressure in their lives and maybe like you don't get enough physical rest. And so when this happens, we can get out of balance in so many ways. And I know that you guys know this. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. So where I would start, if you feel like you are always tired or like you're always out of balance, where I would start is just tuning into your body. So our bodies are for us, right? And I was just in a conversation with a friend yesterday who was saying that her doctor had told her, like, your body is basically like rebelling against you, or, it was like your body is just absolutely breaking down. But the truth is, our bodies never actually rebel against us. They are always for us. And if your physical body is breaking down, a lot of the times what you're feeling, what you're experiencing is symptoms of actually your body trying to heal itself, because your body's always for you. It's always healing. It's always trying to like take everything that you're bringing its way, and it's trying to do the best that it can to keep going. Its job is to keep you surviving, right? And so we have to remember that our body is never actually against us. And it's up to us to give our body the optimal conditions for healing so that it can manage all the things that are coming towards us. It's never about being perfect or getting it perfect, but sometimes our bodies actually need the additional types of rest, like spiritual rest, emotional rest, to support the physical healing. So I remember, I probably shared the story here before, but when I was like diagnosed with adrenal issues, chronic fatigue, it was coming off of a multi-year period of extreme stress. And I mean extreme, like a multi-year period where it just felt like I really didn't ever come down off that stress. I don't know. I was like on this stress high almost, right? We can become addicted to stress. It's like our body's used to that constant pumping of cortisol running through our veins. And at the time, I remember being exhausted all the time. And what's interesting about this is I was actually running 10Ks. I was jogging, I was running, I was doing it every day. I was in, doing 10K races, and I was constantly, working out. Couldn't even gain weight at the time. I was probably much too thin for where I needed to be. And I was doing it in the name of relieving stress. And I loved my runs. I loved getting outside, and it would actually help me mentally reduce the stress. And I felt like I was doing such a good thing for my body. I was like, well, this is good for me, right? I'm doing what my body needs. But the truth is, if I would have just tuned in and listened to the exhaustion, right? My body was exhausted all of the time. By the middle of the afternoon, all I wanted to do was like lay down and take a nap. The brain fog was almost debilitating. And I just kept pushing, kept running, kept going. And I wasn't listening to my body at all, right? Rather than being loving towards my body and compassionate for all of the stress and all the things it was carrying, I just kept pushing. And so I remember when I finally, it was probably my doctor who was like, I think you need to stop running and like, just walk, just yoga, just do like some gentle exercise. It was really hard for me to do that. And maybe you can relate to this if you're someone who feels like more is more, right? I think that sometimes there's nothing wrong with this, but there are certain times when our body doesn't need an extreme workout. It doesn't need to be pushed so hard, and it actually is derailing us. And so physical rest can look a lot of different ways, but we start by tuning in and listening to the body. What does it need? If you are exhausted, are you actually listening to your body and asking it, what does it need? Does it need more sleep? Does it need you to do a different type of exercise? Does it need you to exercise? Maybe it actually needs movement in order to feel energized. We tend to drown out those subtle signals from our body. And I was so disconnected, you guys, at that time from my body. I couldn't have even told you what messages it was sending me because I was used to squashing it down in favor of getting more done, supporting more people, keep on going. And so a simple way to know is to actually just start tuning into the subtle signals of your body and listening to it. For example, when your body's hungry, do you feed it? When your body's full, do you stop eating, right? Those are just little ways our body is communicating with us. If you're experiencing anxiety or nausea or exhaustion, can you listen and then actually honor what the body is inviting you to do? So when I'm working with this with my clients, and that, whenever I'm helping someone create their most amazing life, we're always working body, mind, and soul, because often I think coaching is just perceived that we're working on our thoughts, or it's like we're really coming at it from this logical place. But we have to look at it from this holistic perspective of we've got to include your body because your body is for you and it is always guiding you. And we've got to include your soul, your inner wisdom, because that is like the most incredible wisdom and guidance you'll ever receive. So start by just noticing. Is your body thirsty? What are the subtle signals and what happens when you start to honor those? That's one way of connecting to rest. And a lot of times what happens when we really start to tune in are you having chronic symptoms of some kind? What happens if you start to go deeper, right? To really look at, when did these symptoms start? What was happening for me? How is my stress? How am I thinking? How am I feeling? We can get so much insight. And then we can start looking at, is there another type of rest that my body is calling me for? So, for example, emotional rest. Sometimes that's what we need more than anything, is emotional rest. And there are a lot of different ways you could describe what this is. And I think there's more than one way this could look. But the first way that I think about emotional rest is starting with self-compassion, is just taking a deep exhale and pulling in compassion for yourself. Whatever you're moving through right now, if you're listening to this and you're moving through a really difficult time period, bring in that self-compassion, bring in that space of non-judgment, and just take the pressure off yourself so that you can actually experience your emotions. So when I deeply needed emotional rest, there was a time in my life where, as I said, there was like this multi-year period of time, and there was a culmination where it seemed like everything just kind of fell away at once. So I sold my business, which I had been running for 7-8 years actually, and it was such a big part of my life and my identity and who I was. My business sold. My mom passed away, which my mom was my best friend, the closest person to my life, or in my life aside from my kids. And I made a move all in the same week. Like these things that I had, I'd been supporting my mom while she was ill while running my business, and decided I want to move to be closer to her so I could care for her. It was like all three things just shifted. And I didn't plan it that way. Of course, it's just the way things happened. And I remember, like, at that point, I had been juggling so many balls in the air for so long and trying to keep everything afloat. When all of that shifted in a span of a week, what I deeply needed was emotional rest, but I didn't know it. I had gotten so used to shutting off my emotions, shutting off my feelings, that I didn't even know what I was feeling. And so I just kept going and kept going and kept going. So when the emotional rest came for me, when I finally started to just have some compassion for what I had been walking through, all the emotions came up to the surface, and it was messy. It was messy. I was crying all the time. I couldn't stop crying. I didn't know what the heck was happening. I think my fiance at the time, we're married now, but at the time was like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell you. I'm just like overwhelmed with emotion. And that was actually emotional rest for me, was I was allowing myself to feel. I was allowing myself to process from a place of self-compassion. And so giving ourselves that rest can be so incredibly supportive to actually feel. And this could also look like not walking through this journey alone. Maybe it's a time to bring in the support. It could be a best friend. It could be a therapist. It could be a coach. It could be bringing in a modality like hypnosis, or, something that like serves you based on what you're walking through. But I want you to ask yourself right now are you in need of emotional rest? Do you need to get to a place where your nervous system starts to feel regulated again, and you're not just walking or trying to survive in these periods of extreme stress? Do you need support? And, a lot of times if you're experiencing a lot of symptoms in your body, that is a really big sign that your body is asking for emotional rest. And then lastly, the third type of rest is spiritual. Sometimes we need spiritual rest. And I would even say all the time we need, spiritual rest. But the way that I think about spiritual rest is surrender. It's letting go. And it's realizing that you are not alone, that you have a spiritual team, or whatever you may believe. Maybe you believe in consciousness or oneness, or, your beliefs might be completely different than mine. So I would ask you to think about, what is your version of spiritual rest? The way that I think about it, I believe we all have a spiritual support team. So angels, guides, and they are always working on our behalf. And we have to invite them in. We have free will, so we need to invite them in. We need to say, I'm inviting you to support me. We can do that through prayer. We can specifically ask. We can go into meditation. And it essentially, for me, this feels like, instead of trying to row upstream, like we've got the paddles and we are rowing and rowing and rowing upstream and we're exhausted. What actually happens is when we just stop paddling, bring those oars into the boat, the current takes us exactly where we need to go, right? So I want you to just think about that right now. What if you were to just stop paddling, pull the oars into the boat, lean back, and let the current actually take you? That's how we can be supported, spiritually when we trust. We trust that we've got a team working on our behalf. We trust that we have said a prayer, we've asked for what we need, and everything that we need is actually happening for us in the energetic realms. You know, things are being lined up on our behalf, and we get in the way when we're trying to be like, I got control, I'm going to keep rowing, I know where to steer the ship. It's like we just keep getting in the way and getting in the way and getting in the way, and we wonder why nothing's happening. So, you know, have you asked for guidance? Have you asked your spirit team to jump in and support you? Have you asked for a sign? You know, there can be a lot of different ways this looks. So as you've listened to me talk about this today, I would love for you to just consider, what type of rest are you most being called to right now? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Is it all three? I would love to hear from you guys. As always, if you enjoy these podcasts, please be sure to like it, share it with a friend if someone needs to hear this. And I love the conversations that happen after the podcast. So send me a message, send me a DM. I'm on socials at Lisa Limita or at Rise Leadership Circle. And we would just love to hear from you. Okay, I'm off to create a Facebook Live. I hope you guys will go and check those out on the Rise Leadership Circle channel. And for now, have an amazing day, and we'll see you next time.